Hello there, and welcome back. It's a true comfort to have your company as the night wraps around us. Tonight, we're drifting to ancient Athens, where the first democratic flame was kindled, a quiet gift that still shapes your world, even as you lie here in the dark. Let your pillow receive the weight of your head, and let your breath become a slow tide. Gently, now, let the day dissolve. Ready? Let's go. I'll share 5 gentle facts about the birth of government by the people, one by one. If sleep finds you before the end, let it. These stories will wait patiently. If nights like these help you unwind, I'd be honored if you'd subscribe, so I can be here whenever you need a soft voice. Now, let's begin. In the gentle heart of Athens, many officials were chosen not by election, but by lot, a quiet ritual called sortition. This meant any citizen, whether a farmer or a sculptor, could momentarily hold a public role, like a leaf settling briefly on still water. The lottery was a soft equalizer, ensuring that wealth and fame never monopolized leadership. Names were drawn from woven baskets with a humble rustle, a tender arrangement that let power circulate among ordinary hands, keeping the city's pulse calm and shared. The Pnyx, a natural limestone hill, served as the meeting place for the Athenian assembly. Under the wide sky, thousands of citizens gathered, their bodies resting on the warm stone while voices rippled outward over the valley below. In this open-air cradle, debates about peace and policy rose and fell like tides. There was no grand theater, only the earth and the dome of stars, where every man's whisper was folded into the collective breath of a democracy learning to speak. Ostracism was the city's way of mending itself through soft distance, not harsh punishment. Citizens took a broken piece of pottery and scratched a name upon it, a small, quiet vote. If enough shards were cast, that person would leave Athens for 10 years, not in disgrace but in a kind of suspended peace. It was a communal sigh, a slow release of tension, as if the city were gently blowing a dandelion seed away to keep the field in harmony. The principle of Isegoria granted every citizen the equal right to speak in the assembly, no matter his station. A cobbler's insight held as much weight as a nobleman's decree. This created a warm, luminous space where ideas could sprout from the humblest corners, like mushrooms after a soft rain. In that shared radiance, the simplest voice could shape the law, and the city thrived on the quiet conviction that wisdom was scattered among all, not hoarded by the few. To guarantee fairness, Athenians used a polished bronze machine called a kleroterion. Citizens' tokens slipped through slender slots with a gentle, clicking sound, as if the machine were softly naming the next servant of the public good. This elegant dance of chance replaced ambition with trust, a mechanical heartbeat of democracy. Watching it, one might imagine fate itself resting inside the metal, ensuring that the city's course remained balanced, guided by the impartial hand of a lottery's whisper. In the year 508 before our common era, the transition to democracy began in Athens, guided by Cleisthenes, remembered as the father of Athenian democracy. He looked upon a citizenry tangled in old family rivalries and tribal loyalties, and with a visionary hand, he reorganized them into 10 new tribes. This was not a harsh upheaval but a deliberate redrawing of community lines, like a gardener carefully replanting seeds to ensure a healthier garden. Each new tribe became a blend of people from different regions, from the coast, the city, and the hills, gently breaking the chains of ancient feuds. In this quiet reordering, a new sense of unity took root, where former strangers began to see themselves as fellow Athenians, bound by a common purpose rather than just blood. This new system was not a sudden storm but a gentle rain that slowly eroded the old divisions, nurturing a collective Athenian identity that would blossom for centuries. Unlike our modern systems where we elect distant representatives, the Athenians practiced a direct democracy of personal action. There was no intermediary to speak for you, no vote delegated to a stranger in a distant capital. Instead, each citizen rose from his daily life, perhaps from a workshop or a market stall, and walked under the open sky to the assembly on the Pnyx hill. Standing there on that rocky slope, amidst the scent of wild thyme and the muted hum of city life below, he raised his hand to cast his own vote. In that simple personal gesture, the full weight of his decision settled onto the community of which he was an inseparable part. Every yes and every no was a thread in the living tapestry of their shared future, felt not as an abstraction, but as a tangible choice made in the company of neighbors. Behind the grandeur of the public assembly, a quieter body worked with steady diligence, the Boule, a council of 500 citizens. Chosen by lot, they were ordinary men who gathered in a simple, rounded chamber to prepare the city's agenda. Imagine a dimly lit space, warmed by olive oil lamps, where their voices were a low murmur as they debated which matters should rise to the larger gathering of all citizens. Their role was that of a gentle steering hand, guiding the ship of state through the currents of daily need, ensuring that chaos did not overwhelm their fledgling democracy. They were the quiet architects of order, their careful deliberations unseen by the crowd, yet their work ensured that every voice in the assembly could be heard with purpose and with clarity. Their quiet deliberation was the still point around which the chaos of the assembly could whirl in productive order. In the warm, olive-scented air of Athens, words were more than just sounds. They were instruments of harmony, woven together by the ancient art of rhetoric. This was the gentle skill of persuasive speaking, a practice seen not as manipulation, but as a path to shared enlightenment. Philosophers like Aristotle, with his quiet eye for the patterns of human thought, studied the ways in which language could move a crowd. He believed that a well-constructed argument, delivered with calm reason, could gently guide listeners toward truth, much like a shepherd leads his flock to a cool stream. It was a dance of logic and emotion, where the speaker's voice rose and fell, not to dominate, but to illuminate the collective mind with understanding, each word a soft chisel shaping the marble of public will. At the heart of the city beat the Agora, a warm and bustling marketplace that was more than a place of trade, it was the soul of civic life. Imagine wandering along its sun-warmed stones, where the scent of freshly pressed olives and the drift of incense from small altars filled the air. Here, philosophy and politics mingled like old friends, with the ideas of Socrates echoing from a nearby shopfront while citizens debated the day's laws under the shade of a plane tree. It was a space for slow, unhurried walks, where thoughtful conversations unspooled like threads in a grand tapestry of governance. The quiet rhythms of speech and debate in this open square laid the very foundations upon which our own systems of rule are built, a legacy whispered through the centuries from those dusty streets to the halls of modern power. The stones of the Agora still echo with the footsteps of those who shaped our world, a distant music of citizenship that plays on in every town hall and parliament. In the gentle cradle of ancient Athens, there existed a quiet safeguard called ostracism, a practice designed not for cruelty but for protection. The citizens, when they sensed a single presence growing too large, could gather to write a name upon a shard of broken pottery, an ostracon. This simple piece of clay, once part of a common vessel, became a vessel for their collective will. With these scattered marks, they could send a powerful individual away from the city for 10 years, a peaceful drifting rather than a violent expulsion. It was a way to restore balance, allowing the winds of ambition to settle and the roots of democracy to grow unshaken. Just a short walk from the Agora, the Pnyx hill rose like a natural amphitheater, carved by nature for the voice of the people. Thousands would gather upon its sloping earth, where every murmured concern could float upward on the warm Mediterranean air. The arrangement was so simple, a gentle incline that carried sound from the speaker's stone platform to the highest tier of listeners. Imagine the low murmur of assembly, the rustle of cloaks, and then the clarity of a single voice rising like a bird on a thermal. This vast open space became a shared mind, a place where decisions were woven from the very breath of the citizens, a testament to the power of collective listening. To keep the hand of power light and fair, the Athenians turned to the whisper of chance, a beautiful concept called sortition. Many government positions were filled not by election, but by a divine lottery using a stone machine known as a clerotarion. Picture this device, carved with slots and tubes, where citizens' identity tokens were gently fed to be shaken and released by a random flow of bronze dice. It was a humble surrender to the grace of luck, ensuring that no single voice could dominate simply through charisma or wealth. The quiet clatter of the dice and the slow selection of a name allowed ordinary people, from potters to farmers, to step forward and serve, their turn decided by the impartial hand of fate. Guiding this great assembly was the Boule, a council of 500 citizens acting as a steady hand upon the rudder of the state. This group, rotated annually, prepared the agenda for the larger meetings, sorting through proposals like gardeners tending a seedbed. Their work was a quiet, thoughtful rhythm, ensuring that the chaos of direct debate could find a gentle structure. Citizens from the coastal villages, the mountain farms, and the city streets all took their turn in this council chamber. The wide variety of voices, a fisherman's practical wisdom woven next to a poet's thoughtful insight, created a rich and resilient fabric. Each shared perspective was a thread, binding the sprawling countryside into a single, coherent vision for the city. At the very heart of their system lay a profound and patient practice, a direct democracy where citizens did not merely choose representatives, but became the government themselves. They stepped forward, one by one, onto the assembly floor to speak and vote with their own hands. This required a slow, unhurried process of debate, a drifting through complex arguments where time was an ally, not an enemy. Listeners would sit for hours, watching the light shift across the marble, as speakers wove their reasoning, seeking a common truth through shared speech. It was an intimate act of civic love, a belief that in the patient collision of differing views, a wiser, more harmonious path would emerge, like a slow and perfect sunset. Long before the word democracy was ever spoken, a gentle transformation took root in the city of Athens. In the early 6th century before our common era, a wise lawmaker named Solon looked upon a society fractured by debt and despair. He saw farmers bound by obligations they could never repay, their bodies pledged as collateral, their freedom slipping away like sand through fingers. With a quiet but resolute hand, Solon canceled those crushing debts and liberated those who had fallen into servitude. His reforms acted as a calming balm, softly easing the raw tensions between the rich and the poor, between the powerful and the powerless. It was not a revolution born of fire, but a careful, compassionate mending, stitching together the torn fabric of a community into a more harmonious whole. Imagine the sound of a market square slowly shifting from anxious murmurs to a steadier, more hopeful hum. The heartbeat of this emerging democracy was the assembly, a gathering not of spectators, but of active souls who saw participation as a sacred civic duty. To be present and to speak was to honor the city itself, a shared responsibility woven into the very idea of citizenship. The atmosphere on the Pnyx hill, where citizens met, was charged not with anger, but with a deep intellectual curiosity, a shared wonder about how best to live together. The ancient Greek concept of arete, that striving for excellence in all things, hovered over every discussion like a guiding star. Debates were not mere clashes of opinion, but a collective pursuit of wisdom, a slow and deliberate sculpting of the common good. You can almost hear the rustle of garments as a speaker rises, the attentive silence falling over the seated crowd, each mind turning over ideas like smooth stones in a pocket. Then came Cleisthenes, remembered as the architect who reshaped the very foundation of Athenian public life. He looked at a society still tethered to old family clans, to ancient rivalries passed down through bloodlines, and he imagined a different kind of fabric. His gentle but radical restructuring reorganized the citizens into 10 new tribes, not based on who their parents were, but simply on where they lived. This soft reordering broke down the stubborn loyalties that had long divided neighbor from neighbor. It was as if he had opened a window in a stuffy room, allowing fresh air to circulate and mix the scents of different flowers. People began to float toward new friendships, to discover a unified identity that blossomed from the very earth they shared, rooted in place rather than pedigree. The old weights of kinship slowly dissolved, and a lighter, broader sense of belonging took hold. Justice, too, was reimagined as a collective act of quiet reflection. The legal system came to rely on vast juries, sometimes swelling to an astonishing 501 citizens. This was not a mere procedural oddity, but a deliberate attempt to gather a wide, textured spectrum of human perspective. Picture a large, sun-dappled courtyard where ordinary farmers, potters, and merchants sit side by side, their faces contemplative. They listen, not with the impatience of a modern crowd, but with the patient stillness of those who understand the weight of a verdict. Testimonies unfold like stories told around a hearth, and every juror is a witness to the truth-seeking process. When the moment came to decide, they cast their ballots in secret, each small stone or disc a private prayer for fairness, a silent contribution to the balance of the polis. This entire transformation did not erupt suddenly, but unfolded over several centuries, mirroring the slow, patient growth of an olive grove basking under the Mediterranean sun. Think of the way a sturdy olive tree sends roots deep into rocky soil, year by year, imperceptibly strengthening beneath the surface. The ideas of liberty and equality were like those roots, gradually spreading, intertwining, nourishing a trunk that would one day bear unexpected fruit. There was no single flash of lightning, just a steady, persistent dawn of thought about what it means to be free and to share that freedom with others. And in time, these tender shoots of political imagination would drift across the seas on gentle currents, carried by memory and story, to inspire the unfolding of modern governance in lands the ancient Greeks could never have dreamed. Still drifting with me, through these quiet echoes of the past. That is perfectly fine. You are right where you need to be. If you find this peaceful, a like helps other night travelers find their way here too. Imagine, if you will, the cradle of democracy in ancient Athens, a place where ideas floated as lightly as olive leaves on a breeze. The people there found wisdom in slowness, in letting chance guide the hand of governance, and in rituals that turned power into something soft and shared. Tonight, we drift back to that sun-drenched world, where the stones themselves seem to hum with the spirit of the people. To ensure a gentle rotation of power, the Athenians trusted not in ambition or wealth, but in the quiet wisdom of chance. They used a process called sortition, where citizens were chosen by lottery to serve in public office. Picture a bronze machine called a kleroterion standing in the dappled morning light. It had columns of slots, and into these slots citizens would drop small, smooth markers, perhaps pebbles, beans, or discs of clay. Then, with a soft turn, fate would release a random selection, letting destiny decide who would lead. A baker, a farmer, a sculptor might step forward, taking on a role of honor for a brief season. Guided not by ego but by duty, then return to ordinary life as effortlessly as ripples fade on a pond. There was no grasping, only a gentle offering of service. This dance of chance kept the body politic supple, preventing the hardening of power into tyranny. The heart of this peaceful civic life was the Pnyx, a natural amphitheater shaped by ancient forces, where the land itself seemed to cradle the democratic spirit. It was a hillside of soft, weathered rock, facing the open sky. Thousands of citizens would climb its slopes and seat themselves in broad, curving arcs, like ripples circling a stone thrown into a pond. They would look down upon the speaker's platform, a simple stone step called the bema, and the vast panorama of their city beyond. Voices would rise, debate after debate, about war and peace, harvests and laws. The sound mingled with the distant cries of seabirds and the whisper of wind through olive trees. As evening softened, the gathering felt less a political assembly and more a family sharing stories under a fading sun. It was a place where the boundaries between public duty and private reverence blurred, each man a tiny piece of a beautiful mosaic. And as they sat on the sun-warmed rock, they understood that their voices mattered, each one a thread in the fabric of their city. To keep the debates from growing restless, the assembly used a clepsydra, a water clock that measured time not with ticks but with a gentle, liquid whisper. Imagine a simple vessel of clay, filled with water, and a small hole near its base. A thin, unwavering stream would flow out, each drop a soft heartbeat marking the speaker's allotted minutes. The rhythm was as steady as a drowsy afternoon, and when the vessel ran dry, the speaker knew their moment had slipped away. There was no harsh buzzer, no shouting interruption, only a quiet, natural pause, like a breath held and released. This device turned time into something tangible and fair, giving every voice the same span to ripple through the crowd before yielding to the next. It was a gentle reminder that all things, even the most eloquent speech, must eventually give way to silence, as day gives way to night. And so the clepsydra wove a fabric of patience, thread by thread, drop by drop. Yet the truest beauty of their democracy was Isegoria, the equal right of all citizens to stand and speak. It was a quiet promise inscribed in the hearts of the people, that wealth and noble birth could not purchase a louder voice. A fisherman, still scented with the salt of the sea and the labor of his nets, could rise before the assembly. His hands might tremble, his voice might be rough as stone, but the crowd would lean in, listening with the same respect they gave a trained orator. The softest whisper could carry across those ancient slopes, if it held truth. This was the music of the polis, a chord made of countless distinct tones, none overpowering the others, each note vital to the whole. It was an idea so gentle yet so powerful, like a steady flame that refuses to be extinguished by the wind. And in that circle of stone, every soul, no matter how humble, could feel the dignity of being heard. But even this delicate harmony needed protection from those who might disturb its balance. To preserve the peace of the state, Athens practiced a solemn ritual called Ostracism. Once a year, the citizens would gather, and each would take a piece of broken pottery, a simple shard called an ostracon. With a steady hand, they would scratch a name into the baked clay, a silent vote not of anger, but of collective healing. There was no mob, no shout, only a quiet rustle as the pieces were collected. The person whose name appeared most often would be asked to leave the city for 10 years, to live in gentle exile while the community exhaled. It was not a punishment of hatred, but a tender pruning of the social vine, allowing the garden of democracy to bloom once more. Imagine a citizen, his only crime a subtle discord, packing a small bag and walking away from the white stone houses, into the quiet hills, as the city breathed a sigh of relief. And there, in solitude, he would watch the seasons turn, while the polis continued its dance of shared rule. And so these ancient mechanisms rolled forward, soft as a lullaby, reminding us that democracy can be a calm, steady heartbeat, a dream shared under the same wide sky. As you drift into your own sleep, carry with you the image of that hillside assembly, where every voice mattered, and time flowed as gently as water from a clepsydra. Rest now, in the peace of that ancient promise. Deep within the workings of ancient Athens, there was a quiet steering committee known as the Boule. 500 citizens gathered with a gentle purpose, preparing the agenda for the larger assembly. Their work moved in a calm, structured cycle, like a slow and steady stream that carried the city's daily affairs forward without disruption. These selected individuals did not rush or clamor for attention. They simply tended to the needs of the city with quiet dedication. Their gatherings were held in a modest building, away from the grand temples, where the only sound was the soft rustle of scrolls and the low murmur of focused discussion. It was a rhythm of order, a soft heartbeat beneath the noise of public life. Even now, you can almost hear the murmur of their deliberations fading into the evening air. And at the center of the city, the agora stretched wide under the warm sun. This marketplace was more than just a place of trade. It was where philosophy and politics blended into a single, peaceful hum. Citizens drifted between stalls piled with olive oil and soft linens, their conversations turning slowly to thoughts of justice and virtue. The air was thick with the scent of herbs and the quiet exchange of ideas. It was a place where the mind could wander as freely as the body, resting in the gentle dance of everyday life. Beneath the shade of marble colonnades, the hours passed without hurry, each moment stretched into a quiet exploration of thought. The gentle buzz of the market was like a lullaby, soothing the soul and inviting the mind to dwell on deeper things. Though this system was inclusive for its time, it remained a selective harmony, a garden with carefully chosen blooms. Only adult males born of Athenian parents could step into this circle of citizenship. This created a tight-knit, exclusive community, a soft but firm boundary that shaped the early blueprints of modern governance. It was a world of shared voices, but only a few were allowed to sing. In the stillness of history, we can reflect on how these limitations quietly molded the ideas that would one day spread across the seas. Imagine the quiet pride of those who could gather, their voices rising and falling like the tides of conversation. Yet outside this circle, the world waited, patient, and uninvited, but not forgotten in the grand story of humanity.
This gentle shift toward democracy began around 508 BCE, guided by the thoughtful hand of Cleisthenes. Often remembered as the father of Athenian democracy, he reorganized the population into 10 new tribes with a serene wisdom. His aim was to dissolve old family rivalries, like morning mist fading in the dawn. By weaving these new connections, he encouraged a shared sense of peace among the people. It was a quiet revolution, a slow unfolding of unity that settled over the city like a comforting blanket. This restructuring was not a loud upheaval but a silent reweaving of the social fabric, as gentle as the first light of day. It was a promise of balance, whispered through the streets and squares, settling into the hearts of the people.
The legacy of this ancient experiment drifted across centuries and oceans, carried by the winds of time. It eventually inspired the foundational documents of many modern nations, a soft echo from the past. In the quiet halls of parliaments and congresses today, you can still feel that distant murmur of the Athenian assembly. It is a gentle reminder that ideas, once born in a sunlit marketplace, can travel far beyond their origins. As you rest, let this thought cradle you, like waves lapping at the shore of history. Listen closely, and you might sense the faint rhythm of those ancient debates, a timeless melody that still guides the course of nations. It is a soft inheritance, passed down through the ages, not with force, but with a gentle persistence. In the heart of ancient Athens, where the air was still and golden with morning light, choosing leaders was a gentle act of chance. They called it sortition, a quiet alternative to the clamor of elections. Names were placed into a stone device, the kleroterion, its surface cool and smooth to the touch. This simple mechanism allowed fate to quietly select citizens for public service, as if the universe itself was placing a guiding hand. There was no competition, only a soft trust in the randomness of destiny, like seeds scattered by the wind. It was a peaceful surrender to the flow of life, a reminder that sometimes the best choices are made when we let go. A short walk from the city center lay the Pnyx, a naturally sloping hillside where the earth seemed to embrace the people. It was an open-air sanctuary, wide and calm, where thousands of citizens gathered to listen. The drifting echoes of political debate moved across the crowd, carried by a gentle breeze. The wind became a messenger, lifting voices and letting them float over the Athenian landscape. This place was the physical soul of democracy, a space where the breath of the people mingled with the ancient air, creating a quiet symphony of shared purpose. The Pnyx was more than a venue, it was a living entity that held the dreams of Athens, and as the sun climbed higher, the debates became a soft hum, a lullaby for the city. To keep this delicate balance, Athens used a soft system of checks called Ostracism. Once a year, as the seasons turned, citizens could write a name on a piece of pottery, an ostracon. It was a graceful act, almost like a whispered suggestion, to invite a potentially disruptive leader to live in quiet exile for 10 years. This wasn't a punishment, but a gentle nudge back into harmony. The soft clinks of pottery being cast into the pile were a rhythmic reminder of the community's desire for peace, a dreamy safeguard for the democratic spirit. It was as if the city breathed out a slow exhale, clearing the path for new growth, a quiet pause that allowed the wandering soul to return with fresh eyes. The assembly, known as the Ecclesia, met during the soft light of dawn when the world was still waking. As the first rays of sun painted the sky, any male citizen could step forward, regardless of his wealth. This gathering was an inclusive space, a canvas where thoughts were shared like dewdrops on grass. Voices rose and fell in a gentle murmur, shaping the laws that would guide the city. It was a quiet, powerful moment where the future took shape in the hush of early morning, a collective dream unfolding under the pastel colors of the sky. The soft light made everything seem possible, as if the laws were woven from the golden threads of dawn, a daily rebirth of democracy. Sustaining this dream was the Council of 500, the boule, which acted as the steady heartbeat of the city's administration. These members served for only 1 year, a brief, beautiful moment in the flow of time. Responsibility floated gently from one citizen to another in a continuous calming cycle. Like the slow turning of a great wheel, it ensured that no one person held power for too long. This soft rhythm kept the city alive, a pulse of democratic life resting lightly in the hands of many, a gentle whisper of governance through the ages. Each year brought new hands to the helm, a fresh breeze in the corridors of power, the boule being not a fortress but a garden where ideas grew in quiet renewal.
Imagine yourself drifting back through time, to the warm hills of ancient Athens, where the golden sun casts long, gentle shadows across the marble stones. In this ancient city, when disputes arose, they were settled not in small, hushed rooms, but in vast, open courts. Here, juries were not made up of a few learned men, but of hundreds of ordinary citizens, gathered together like a vast, shimmering sea of collective judgment, where each individual was a single, important drop in an immense, tranquil ocean. The law was not held tightly by a privileged few, but shared among the many, flowing wide and free like a great river that nourishes the land, carrying justice to every quiet corner of the city. This system ensured that justice was a common trust, a shared responsibility, not a distant, isolated power. And so, the city slumbered in the knowledge that its laws were a gentle current, guiding all equally.
Oratory, too, was not seen as mere speaking, but as a rhythmic art form, a dance of words that could soothe the weary heart. Speakers carefully crafted their phrases to glide through the minds of their listeners, like a soft breeze moving through olive leaves, each word a gentle rustle in the quiet air. The pursuit of rhetoric was never about force or loud declaration, but about the elegant flow of logic, the gentle persuasion of the spirit, a quiet conversation that lulled the assembly into a state of shared understanding. This world of thoughtful expression and shared law began to blossom around the 6th century before our common era, with the thoughtful reforms of a man named Solon. He looked upon his city and saw the tensions, the cracks between social classes, and in his wisdom, he sought to bring a sense of balance and harmony through mindful legislation. His laws were like a soothing balm, easing the struggles between the rich and the poor, planting seeds of fairness that would slowly, patiently grow over centuries into the grand tree of democracy. From this careful tending grew a profound concept, known as Isegoria, the equal right of every citizen to speak in the assembly. This was a peaceful promise, a quiet assurance that the softest voice, the most hesitant whisper, carried the same weight as the loudest, most prominent cry. Together these voices wove a tapestry of diverse perspectives, a quiet harmony of many threads, each one necessary and valued, blending into a single, beautiful cloth of civic life. The very bones of the city reflected this democratic dream. The architecture of their gathering spaces often featured warm, sun-drenched marble that glowed softly under the Attic sky, and wide, open plazas that seemed to breathe with the gentle pulse of civic life. These spaces invited citizens to linger in quiet conversation, to sit on the cool, shaded steps and let ideas float like dust motes in the golden Athenian light. Here, philosophy and governance grew slowly, nurtured by patience and light, never rushed by the haste of modern times, but instead unfolding like a flower in the morning sun. So, in the soft hum of the ancient agora, democracy was not a noisy revolution, but a quiet, enduring song, a melody of voices that still whispers to us across the ages, reminding us of the beauty of shared thought and gentle discourse. Imagine a city where leadership comes not from ambition, but from the simple turn of a stone. In ancient Athens, they used a method called sortition, a lottery that quietly chose government officials. This peaceful process meant that any citizen, regardless of wealth or status, could find themselves drifting into a position of public trust. There was no loud campaign, no struggle for power, only the gentle fate of a random selection, as if the city trusted the soft hands of chance. And when the harmony of the city felt threatened, there was another quiet custom. It was called Ostracism, a social tool as delicate as a whisper. If a citizen seemed to gather too much power, the people would take a piece of broken pottery, an ostracon, and gently scratch a name onto its surface. There was no anger, no public shaming. It was simply a collective suggestion that the person might benefit from a time away, a temporary departure to restore the balance, like a stream that finds its way around a stone. Now picture the Pnyx, a naturally formed rocky hill where the heart of democracy would softly beat. Thousands of citizens gathered there, standing together beneath the wide and open sky. The air would be filled with the rhythmic flow of debate, voices rising and falling like the tide. There were no grand buildings, just the earth rising up to hold the people, and the sky above, a serene witness to the gentle dance of public discourse. To make sure that no voice was left unheard, the city offered a simple gesture. A small sum of money called Misthos was sometimes given to those who attended the assembly. This quiet thoughtfulness meant that even the humblest laborer could pause their daily work, step away from the warm dust of the fields, and float into the world of civic thought. It was a soft invitation, a way to say that every perspective was a quiet treasure. Beneath it all, the steady heartbeat of the city was the Council of 500, known as the Boule. These citizens served for just 1 year, preparing the agenda for the larger assembly. There was a gentle rotation of responsibility, like the turning of the seasons, that kept the government fluid and fresh. No one held power for too long, and the rhythm of service ensured that the city breathed easily, always renewed by the simple, dreamlike flow of ordinary people stepping forward. Under the soft glow of the moon, we drift now into the quiet heart of ancient Athens, where the seeds of democracy once took root in the stillness of history. Let your thoughts settle like dust in a sunbeam as we explore a world of gentle civic duty. The circle of democracy in ancient Athens was a small and sacred one. Only adult male citizens could cast their vote, a practice that quietly closed the door to women, to enslaved people, and to foreigners. This created an exclusive group, a circle of participants bound together by a deep, quiet sense of responsibility, a shared civic duty that hummed softly through the city, a bond between a few who held the power of decision in their hands. There was a beautiful, soft promise in the air of the assembly, a concept known as Isegoria, the equal right of every citizen to speak. Wealth and family lineage melted away into insignificance, for this gentle law declared that every single voice, no matter how quiet or from what humble corner it came, carried the exact same weight in the halls of power. It was a delicate balance, a whisper of equality that made the grandest ideas and the simplest suggestions float side by side. When disagreements arose, they were soothed not in anger, but in the calm, collective effort of the people's courts. Imagine a massive and peaceful gathering, a jury formed from up to 1,501 citizens, all coming together to restore harmony. This enormous group worked like a slow, steady river, their shared minds drifting toward a consensus, their singular goal to mend the fabric of the community and return it to a state of quiet balance, all without a single harsh wave. We remember Cleisthenes as the gentle architect of this system, a reformer who rearranged the very shape of society. With a soft hand, he reorganized the population into 10 tribes based simply on where people lived, a quiet departure from the powerful bonds of family bloodlines. This simple shift allowed citizens to peacefully drift away from old, fierce loyalties and embrace a new, unified identity, a feeling of belonging that floated above ancient divisions like a mist over the land. This grand transformation, this slow floating from aristocracy to democracy, was not a sudden storm but a gradual unfolding over many centuries. It began as a series of soft, almost imperceptible reforms, a quiet weaving of shared governance, thread by thread. This tapestry, woven with patience and gentle vision, would one day drape over the shoulders of the modern world. Its patterns of collective voice and equality, a soft inspiration for generations yet to come. You are still here, drifting so peacefully. That is wonderful. There is no need to hold on to any of these ancient names or ideas. Just let the soft echo of a single voice, a single stone in the great river of time, wash over you. I will keep talking. You just rest, and let another gentle wave of knowledge approach. In the soft, golden light of ancient Athens, democracy breathed in a way we might only dream of today. Citizens did not elect others to speak for them. Instead, they gathered in a wide, open-air space, their voices mingling with the wind as they voted directly on laws. To keep power balanced and peaceful, they relied on a practice called sortition. Officials were chosen by lot, a simple draw that trusted fate over ambition. It was a gentle, trusting way to ensure that power flowed like water, never pooling in one place for too long. There was another practice, soft and solemn, called ostracism. Once a year, citizens would take a piece of pottery, an ostracon, and gently write a name upon it. It was not an act of anger, but a quiet pause to consider balance. If enough hearts agreed, that person would be invited to live away for 10 years, not in chains, but in peaceful exile, a temporary distance to keep the democracy light. Picture this ritual in the still evening. Citizens gathered to reflect, holding simple shards of pottery. Each name was a wish for harmony, a gentle way to say, step back for a while. And for 10 years, that soul would wander as a protection for the whole. At the heart of this democracy lay the Pnyx, a natural rocky hill under the open sky. Thousands of citizens would gather there, sitting on the earth, listening. The air was filled with the rhythmic sound of voices, a soft murmur of ideas. Men would step onto a stone platform, the bema, to share their thoughts. It was a place where words floated on the breeze, shaping the future in a gentle hum. Imagine the Pnyx at dawn, the rocks warm under the sun. Citizens walked up the slope, their voices weaving a tapestry of sound. From a simple carved rock, ideas took flight. Here, democracy breathed as a living thing in the open air. Supporting this great assembly was the Council of 500, known as the Boule. Its members served for only 1 year, a blink in the life of the city. This was a place of constant transition, where people moved like seasons. Their task was to prepare the agenda, to sort the ideas for the assembly. This kept the process of ruling soft and orderly, flowing with a natural rhythm. The Boule was like a quiet heartbeat, steady and unassuming. Each member, chosen by lot, served with duty, then stepped aside. This rotation ensured that power never settled in one hand. In a space of low light and whispered planning, they shaped the discussions for the Pnyx. Yet beneath this democratic light, there lay a quiet, invisible structure. The tranquility of the debates, the time for thought and speech, was made possible by others. Enslaved people worked in homes and fields, their labor unspoken but essential, and women, in the peaceful shadows of the house, managed the domestic world with silent care. This was the unseen soil from which democracy grew, a gentle, sad truth that hummed in the background. In the agora, enslaved bodies moved goods, while women wove cloth and raised children. They never stepped onto the Pnyx, though their work held up the city. The democracy that shone was a tree with roots in these quiet labors. The peace of the Pnyx was a gift from those who stayed in shadow. And so, as the sun set over the Pnyx, the voices faded, leaving only the whisper of stone and memory. In this dream of Athens, we glimpse the delicate balance of a world long past, yet still breathing in our imagination. Imagine a world where the ground beneath your feet felt as steady as the sky above, a world where the simple idea of fairness held the whole society in a gentle, sunlit balance. This was the guiding light of Isegoria, the dream that every person, no matter their trade or birth, could stand before the law as an equal. A humble potter, hands still dusted with clay, could look across the public square and see a wealthy landowner, and know that their voices carried the very same weight. It was a floating sense of equilibrium, a quiet promise whispered through the olive groves and over the marble steps of the assembly, that here, justice did not bow to power but rose from the shared breath of the people. When a dispute arose, the city would call together not just a few, but hundreds of its citizens to sit in quiet rows and listen. Juries could swell to 501 or even more, creating an almost immersive sea of attention, a living tapestry of faces turned toward the truth. They would hear long testimonies, voices weaving tales of what had happened, while the warm air settled around them. Then, in a slow collective motion, each juror would reach for a small bronze disc and drop it into an urn, a soft clink marking their silent vote. It was a drifting, meditative act, as if the whole community were breathing in, holding the moment, and then releasing a verdict that belonged to everyone and no one in particular. This way of living together did not arrive all at once. Around the year 508 before our common era, a man named Cleisthenes began to gently reshape the world around him. He took the scattered, often feuding families and reorganized them into 10 new tribes, like a weaver smoothing out tangled threads. By blending people from the coast, the city, and the inland hills into each tribe, he softened the old rivalries and began to stitch a single, harmonious fabric. The hills themselves seemed to inhale peace, as ancient family grudges dissolved into a new, shared identity. No longer were you only of your ancestors' house, you were now a strand in a larger, softer cloth that wrapped the whole polis in a quiet embrace. In this luminous space, words themselves became a kind of music. Public speaking, or rhetoric, was not a weapon but a gentle art, practiced by philosophers and statesmen like a slow, deliberate craft. They studied the cadence of language, the way a pause could land like a feather, and the warmth of a tone that could persuade without demanding. To stand and speak before the assembly was to enter a melodic exchange, where ideas were offered like gifts and the act of governing felt less like a struggle for control and more like a shared song. The voice became an instrument, and the crowd listened not with sharp ears but with a soft, open attention, letting the rhythm of reason wash over them. And now, across the vast stretch of time, the legacy of that era lingers like a soft echo in the halls of our own parliaments and congresses. The very word we use today, democracy, drifts gently to us from the ancient Greek language, from demos, meaning the people, and kratos, meaning power or rule. When you hear that word spoken in a modern room of governance, you might sense the faintest warmth of those sun-drenched hills, the shadow of an olive tree, the whisper of a citizen's bronze disc falling into an urn. It is a quiet bridge across the ages, forever linking our present, with all its striving, to that ancient luminous dream where every voice, however small, was allowed to touch the sky.
Let us now turn our attention to the quiet mechanisms of Athenian democracy, where power was shared as gently as a morning mist. In the heart of the city, a peaceful rotation of leadership ensured that no single voice grew too loud. Most government officials were chosen not by the frenzy of elections, but by a simple lottery. They used an old stone machine called a clarotarion, a calm device that randomly selected names. Any citizen, regardless of wealth or fame, could drift into a role of responsibility for just a short time, then softly return to their everyday life.
To maintain a quiet harmony within those ancient streets, the Athenians practiced something called ostracism. Once each year, the community would gather and write a single name on a broken piece of pottery, an ostracon. If enough shards bore the same name, that person was peacefully invited to live away from the city for 10 years. No anger, no prison, just a gentle separation to preserve the delicate equilibrium of their shared society, like pruning a branch so a tree might grow stronger. The Pnyx was a natural, open-air amphitheater carved into a gentle limestone hill. Imagine thousands of people floating under the warm Grecian sun, settling on the rocky slope to listen. Here, the soft cadence of political debate rose and fell like a slow breath. It was a gathering place without walls, where the sky itself seemed to listen as citizens exercised their right to speak and then to vote, their raised hands catching the light. That direct democracy meant every eligible citizen had a voice, weaving a vast tapestry of shared governance. Unlike the systems of today, there were no distant representatives to speak on their behalf. Instead, individuals would walk peacefully to the center of the city. their sandals brushing the dusty stones, to vote on laws by a simple show of hands. Each gesture was a quiet thread in the fabric of the state, a personal contribution to the collective dream. And at the quiet heart of this dream lay Isegoria, a warm and inclusive guarantee. It meant that every single citizen, no matter how humble, had an equal right to step forward and address the assembly. A farmer with earth still under his fingernails could stand beside a wealthy landowner, their voices floating together in a shared pursuit of truth. This equal right to speak was the breath of their democracy, a soft reminder that every soul, in stillness, deserves to be heard. In ancient Athens, there was a gentle idea, a way to ensure that even the poorest citizen could step into the currents of politics. They called it Misthos, a simple payment for public service. Imagine a farmer leaving his fields for a day, a potter setting aside his clay, because the city offered a small stipend to spend those hours in peaceful deliberation. It was like a quiet invitation, a soft hand extended so that every voice might be heard in the assembly. This humble payment wove the fabric of the city closer together, one calm thread at a time. The heart of the city beat steadily with the Council of 500, known as the Boule. This group prepared the agenda for the larger assembly, like a quiet engine setting the stage for thoughtful discourse. Members served for only 1 year, a soft and revolving door of leadership that ensured no single hand could hold the tiller for too long. Power flowed gently, passing from citizen to citizen, a river of shared responsibility that never grew stagnant. Each year, the council renewed itself like a field after harvest, fresh and ready for the slow, patient work of governance. In this way, the city breathed with a calm and constant pulse. When disputes arose, the law courts of Athens opened wide, sometimes gathering as many as 6,000 jurors. This vast assembly of listeners was meant to ensure a broad and balanced perspective, a quiet sea of faces watching the evidence unfold with care. In the stillness of the court, arguments were not shouted but laid down like stones, each one examined under the soft light of collective wisdom. There was no rush, only the slow turning of minds toward what was just. Decisions were reached through a peaceful consensus, a shared settling of minds like the gentle closing of a day. Long before these systems took root, a man named Solon stepped forward in the year 594 BCE, a time of great tension. He saw the heavy burdens of debt crushing the poor, and with a gentle hand, he reshaped the laws to relieve that weight. His reforms moved through the city like a calming breeze, easing the strife between social classes. He did not seek to overturn everything, but simply to loosen the knots that bound people in despair. In doing so, he laid the foundation for a more harmonious state, a quiet turning of the soil where democracy could later bloom. And then there was the Agora, the open heart of Athens, where architecture itself offered a serene backdrop for daily life. Soft marble columns rose like quiet sentinels, and shaded walkways invited a slow, wandering pace. Here, citizens would stroll beneath the golden light of the Mediterranean sky, their conversations drifting into philosophy and governance. It was not a place of frantic energy, but of calm exchange, where ideas could be held and turned over like smooth pebbles found by the sea. The very stones seemed to hum with a patient wisdom, cradling the city in a gentle, enduring peace. In all these ways, ancient Athens moved not with haste, but with the rhythm of a dream, timeless and serene. In the heart of ancient Athens, a gentle lottery called Sortition chose many officials, a quiet alternative to fierce elections. This peaceful system rested on the soft belief that every citizen, deep within, held a warm, inherent wisdom to serve the community for a brief, fleeting time. It was a still moment of chance, a calm breath of democracy where status melted away, leaving only the gentle responsibility of civic duty. Imagine the soft pull of fate, a deep trust in the collective heart, like a whispered promise under the warm sky. No clamor, no strife, just the silent dance of destiny. To protect the harmony of the assembly, the Athenians used a unique tool, a stone slab called the kleroterion, with slots for wooden tablets. As the tablets drifted into place, guided by a quiet hand, a sense of fair, soft chance settled over all participants. This random selection process was a deep, still rhythm, a silent guardian of equality, ensuring each voice had equal weight in the warm light of the agora. It felt like a gentle dance of fate, a whispered assurance that democracy was a living, breathing thing. The smooth stone and cool wood embodied the calm of the process. The Pnyx was a natural limestone plateau rising under the vast open sky, where thousands of citizens gathered to share their voices. This open-air sanctuary allowed the soft, warm breeze of the Mediterranean to flow through the crowd, carrying whispers of debate and hope. As they discussed the future of their city, the deep, still connection to the land was palpable, the cool stone beneath them, the gentle murmur of the assembly like a collective sigh. It was a place where democracy breathed freely, under the endless blue. The breeze kissed their skin, a reminder of the gentle power of the people. Ostracism was a reflective process, where citizens wrote a name on a piece of pottery called an ostracon, a quiet act to peacefully suggest someone leave the city for 10 years. It was not a punishment, but a soft way to preserve the balance and stability of the democratic spirit, like a gentle tide correcting the course. Each scratch on the clay felt like a whisper of concern, a warm, communal decision to protect the whole from unchecked ambition. It was a deep ritual of renewal, a silent vote for harmony. The ostracon, fragile yet firm, held the weight of collective wisdom. The Council of 500, the Boule, functioned as the steady heartbeat of the government, preparing the agenda for the larger assembly with quiet diligence. Each member served a one-year term, creating a rotating cycle of leadership that felt like a slow, rhythmic wave of civic duty. This deep, soft pulse ensured the city's daily life flowed with harmony, a gentle reminder that authority, like the seasons, must change to keep the community fresh and vibrant. It was the quiet engine of democracy, humming in the background, like water flowing over ancient stones. Imagine a hand, rough from labor, opening to receive a small silver coin. This was Pericles' gift, a quiet and radical kindness. He wanted the poorest citizen to feel the weight of that coin, not as a burden, but as a key to the jury, to the public office, to the very heart of the city's voice. The fisherman and the baker could now let their thoughts settle into law, their words drifting up like warm breath in the cool marble hall of the assembly. Picture them, standing side by side with the wealthy, their ideas mingling in the golden, dusty light. It was a tender weaving, a vast and inclusive murmur that softened the edges of power into something shared and calm. Like a slow, deep river, it gathered every small stream into one steady flow. The word itself feels like a quiet sigh, Isegoria, a state of equal laws. Picture every citizen drifting through the city, their footsteps light on the same sun-baked stones. There is no shadow of privilege here, only a soft canopy of justice that shelters all, from the merchant in the market to the philosopher in the shade. This was the deep and steady rhythm of Athens, a calm sense of belonging that settled in the chest like a warm stone. It was a shared identity, still and sure, like the evening air that wraps around the Acropolis, holding every person in the same gentle embrace. You could walk the entire length of the city and feel it, an unspoken promise that you belonged, that you were woven into the same quiet tapestry. There were no intermediaries, no distant voices speaking for the people. Here, each citizen stood in the warm light of the assembly, their own voice a thread in the vast fabric of the day's decision. This was a slow, immersive process, demanding a deep commitment like the steady pulse of a drum. You would listen, truly listen, to the rhetoric that bloomed and faded like morning flowers, and you would feel the weight of your own vote in your palm, smooth and warm. It was a personal offering, a quiet stone cast into the flow of law, requiring patience and the warm courage of speaking your truth to your peers. And in that silence before the vote, you could hear the city breathe, a collective breath held in the sunlit air, waiting for each individual choice to ripple outward. The agora spread out like a wide and sunny blanket, a marketplace where ideas were as tangible as olives and cloth. Here, between the soaring marble columns, philosophy and politics mingled softly, like dust motes dancing in the golden air. Citizens wandered, their sandals whispering on the warm stone, engaging in quiet dialogues about justice. What is a good life? The question drifted up and settled like a leaf on the shoulder of a friend. They would pause, their faces softened by the light, to consider virtue and happiness. It was a still point, a slow and thoughtful gathering where the mind could stretch and breathe, where the boundaries between daily life and the grandest ideal blurred into one peaceful hum. Long ago, the earth of Athens was heavy with the weight of debt and slavery, the soil cracked with despair. Then came Solon, with hands gentle as the first rain of spring, easing those burdens. He reached down and loosened the chains, not with a shattering blow, but with a soft and patient gesture, a quiet unfastening that let hope seep back into the land. His reforms acted as a quiet bridge, guiding the city away from the sharp, cold rule of aristocrats and toward a wider, more peaceful plain. Imagine the slow relief spreading through the olive groves, a collective exhale as people stood upright and saw a shared horizon, golden with the first light. It was the first murmur of democracy, a stillness that promised a gentler dawn, a softer way of living together under the same warm sky. In ancient Athens, there was a soft, democratic breath called Isegoria, the equal right of every citizen to speak into the assembly's quiet air. Feel the warm stillness where a humble shoemaker's voice held the same weight as a powerful aristocrat's whisper. Their words drifted through the peaceful deliberation of laws, light and balanced as the faintest sigh. To keep that air fair, they turned to Sortition, a gentle lottery that chose many officials by chance. Imagine the cold, smooth stone of a claroterion, a machine of random stillness. Tokens fell into its slots with a soft rustle, and citizens drifted into office like leaves on a vast, invisible current. A quiet surrender to fate, a deep breath of trust. Ostracism was a hushed way to protect harmony, a vote to send someone away for 10 years. Citizens would scratch a name onto a piece of pottery, an ostracon, feel the faint rasp of the stylus, the soft dust of clay, a whisper on terracotta. It was a gentle smoothing, a way to keep the city's atmosphere calm and deeply balanced, like still water. The Pnyx rose as a natural limestone hill, a serene meeting place under the endless sky. Thousands gathered there, their voices floating over the landscape, light and unmoored. Feel the warm, worn stone beneath you, the vast canopy of stars above. The murmur of the assembly was a deep, collective breath, a quiet tide shaping the future. Cleisthenes was the weaver of this peaceful tapestry. Around 508 BCE, he reorganized the population into artificial tribes, his thoughtful restructuring blending different social groups like threads in a soft cloth. Feel the gentle knitting of communities across Attica, a vast, warm unity spreading beneath the olive trees. It was a deep, still breath that held the city together. Picture the Athenian courts, long ago. There were no lawyers there, only citizens speaking for themselves. Their voices were soft and persuasive, and a vast jury of 501 listened in deep, still silence before casting secret votes. Now feel the steady pulse of the boule, a council of 500 citizens preparing the agenda for the larger assembly. They were a quiet guiding hand, and their membership rotated often, letting the responsibility flow gently through the community like a soft, shared breath. Recall the delicate circle of democracy. It was a revolutionary light, but held only by adult male citizens who had finished their military training. A small, warm space within the total population, a quiet gathering of voices in the dusk. The word itself is like a floating ideal. Democracy comes from demos, the people, and kratos, power. It whispers of a state where authority rests softly in the hands of the many, like light settling on still water. And this all began with a slow, drifting turn. In 594 BCE, Solon eased the burdens of the poor, seeking a harmonious structure. His reforms were a gentle current, carrying Athens toward a new and quiet dawn. The Golden Age dimmed. Yet democracy's spirit drifted across the sea, whispering into Roman halls and shaping the quiet foundations of our world. From demos, the people, and kratos, power, democracy was born, a quiet shift where a king's solitary hand gave way to the steady pulse of many hearts. In Athens' calm embrace, Sortition chose leaders by random lottery so that every citizen, high or low, could float into power on the soft current of chance. The Pnyx rested, a silent hillside where the assembly listened to debates murmuring like a river, as countless voices blended into the city's breath. With Ostracism, a name scratched on pottery could gently guide a troubled soul away, a 10-year exile born not of anger but of soft communal harmony. Cleisthenes was the soft architect who, in 508 before the Common Era, wove 10 tribes from scattered regions until the old family feuds dissolved into a single tapestry of unity. The Council of 500, the Boule, was a slow and steady lamp preparing the assembly's path, its members changing with each year, so governance flowed like water through many hands. The ecclesia was the great gathering where every citizen could rise and speak into a shared breath of curiosity, where even the quietest murmur might turn the whole city toward a new horizon. Democracy in Athens grew alongside a deep hunger for beauty, philosophy, and theater blooming under the warm Mediterranean sun, because the people believed a peaceful society needed both a reasoned mind and a beautiful soul. In the city's heart, the Agora was a soft center where trade and talk drifted together, citizens moving between market stalls and philosophical circles, until the practical and the wondrous became one quiet hum of daily life. The legacy of this ancient system floats through time, a quiet current beneath the surface of our modern world. Imagine the gentle idea of a citizen speaking, a vote cast, a hand raised in the sunlight. That same impulse now forms the quiet foundations of representative governments, built not with a shout but with the steady hum of ordinary voices. It drifts forward across centuries, a soft and enduring echo, and its spirit, that simple dream of equality and public service, remains a gentle reminder, like a star seen through a long, slow night. It speaks to the human heart's quiet desire for a balanced and fair world, a place where every voice is a small light in a great gathering. This is a story of us, of a hope that never quite sleeps, holding the promise of a more peaceful dawn. And with that, we find ourselves at the end of our shared journey through ancient Greek democracy, a story of voices and stones and the first light of an idea. Your mind has wandered through those ancient cities and quiet assemblies, and now it is time to let all those thoughts go. If this gentle exploration helped you drift toward rest, perhaps leave a like, a small echo of your presence. And if you subscribe, I will be here whenever you need me, ready with a new story for a quiet night. Good night, sleep well, and remember, the seeds of a fairer world were planted long ago, and they still grow in the quiet earth of time. Rest now, everything is exactly as it should be.